meeting come to order, please. Leona.
Yep, got it. Okay, everybody, pulikako. We're going to start on time as much as possible. I just want to say in this season of Thanksgiving, I think you can all take it within yourselves to think about how much we're thankful for. For one, the breath of life, our family, our friends. I personally believe in God. I thank Him every day, although sometimes we get arguments. But I want all of us to think how thankful we are for life this week. I was just talking to my new friends here about Superstorm Sandy and what could be expected to come in the near future because of global warming. So more so, let's pray for our families and friends, people. You may not know their names, but they're suffering over there on the East Coast with what has happened to them. So let's keep them up in our prayers also. Here we are, we're going to enjoy Thanksgiving on Thursday with our family and friends, and some have not for this holiday season. So let's definitely keep them in our thoughts and in our prayers. Heavenly Father, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, Father, I just want to lift up our thanksgiving to you this week, Father God. And we should always have thankful hearts for your blessing on ourselves, our family, our friends, having jobs, having cars that run, and Father, just waking up above ground every morning. Father, I praise and thank you for the food that has been prepared. I ask that you bless it, sanctify it, make it nourishing to our bodies, tasty to our mouths. And Father, as we move into this meeting, I ask that you open our minds and our hearts to grab all the manao we need to do to go forward in this Hawaiian caucus and in the coming legislative season. Father, we ask that you give us the words of our mouth, wisdom to our heads, and definitely computers to write testimony. And Father, I give all these things to you as we say, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever.
Amen.
Thank you. Do you all have the minutes? The minutes and bylaws for late people. Can you come up for the minutes and bylaws? And are there any corrections to the minutes?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
are we in order? Don't we need to approve the agenda?
We called to order in the beginning, and then we had pulikako.
I know.
Yeah.
But Madam Chair, point of order, are we to approve the minutes on the agenda of this meeting before we proceed? Isn't that part of the Robert's Rules?
I don't think so. It was already set up.
I think right now what we wanted to do was just do a call to order
Yes.
and introduce everybody.
Well, and that's fine. I mean, that's fine.
And then move into
And then move into,
the issues of the agenda itself.
okay.
Is that enough? Okay, so you start off.
Oh, Lena Hubbard, Latoya Kaito,
And the caucus chair.
no, caucus chair.
And my name is Juanita Brown Kawamoto, and vice chair of our caucus, Hawaiian Affairs Caucus.
Record Diaz. Oh, Tony Reed. Member.
Mary Diaz, from Palapa area.
Meg Pilago, just a member.
Record Deltarian member.
And another.
Joe Lewis, member.
Aloha, Leona Kalima. I just became a party member. The last meeting we had was October 22nd. And I just put a paper over there that should make me a member of this caucus.
Aloha, Lynette Cruz.
Become a member.
Naomi Khan, I'd say I've been a dormant member, but I was initially a member when the caucus was founded. Mahalo.
Chen Wei In, in private life, C. Francis Chen.
Dante Carpenter. I don't think I'm formally a member, but I am a member of the Democratic Party.
Roth Puahala, also a member.
Shall we go on the outside now?
I'm Josh Frost. I've been assisting.
I'm Matthew Watt, Democratic member.
1:30. You asked me.
Mary Dinger, I signed in.
Mike, you were.
She said you didn't tell her that. But you do a good job.
Do we have a secretary to record the minutes, or would you like to record?
Yeah, Janine, wonderful.
We're also recording, so it's good.
Who's recording?
We have Pono Kealoha back there who's working on filming the caucus meeting so that we have record of what we do here.
Okay, so, excuse me, but I just like clarification, who's doing the minutes? Who's doing the minutes?
So we can either, I can do the minutes because I'm an officer. So for this time, I think it would be more appropriate that I do minutes at this point. Anyone, I think new person just came in. Go ahead, we're introducing ourselves, Esther.
Aloha, I'm Esther Kia Aina, and I'm just here to support efforts to help strengthen our Hawaiian caucus within the Democratic Party, because I believe it's good for everybody. And so I'm glad to see everybody here.
And I think Joe Jordan in the back.
Yeah,
Joe,
Joe.
could you introduce yourself? You did? Okay, good. Did we get everybody then? All right.
Did you introduce
Oh, I'm Terry Heedy, slave of all people who come to headquarters. Person with no life.
She's a great slave.
Oh, yeah. I'm Ulu Vesper. Yeah, same thing, supporting the Hawaiians. And
Jean Sheeta, supporting the party.
Okay, I think that's everybody in the room.
Yeah.
So now we can go on to address the next part of it, which is the meeting, the minutes.
And you guys are going to need to speak up because it is hard to hear. So speak up, be forceful.
Would you like me to introduce the issue on the minutes? Or?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so what we'd like to do is go ahead first off and start by accepting the minutes that are put in front of you. I can read it if you'd like to, or you can read it yourself, and if you want to make motion to accept it, that'd be great. If you choose not to accept it, then we have discussion. So I think that's where we'd like to go right now with the minutes. So the first set of minutes that we're reviewing is the May 25th. May 25th, 2012, Hawaiian Affairs Caucus meeting that took place at the Waikiki Sheraton.
Who is the Big Island delegate and Neighbor Island delegate?
We never received the actual names or information from the chair then, Elmer Ka'ai. We have requested it in writing formally back from May till to date. We're still waiting. So I cannot answer that question directly. But I can attest that they were present in the room when we did have the meeting.
Madam Vice Chair,
Yes.
point of order, please.
Yes.
I would like to ask if the chair would be so kind, as our party chair, how our actual caucus rules are handled. Is this, if it's Robert's rules, does that require an agenda approval? If so, yes or no?
Okay,
We've bypassed.
To the best of my knowledge, Brick, the rules are basically engendered as a function of the bylaw, which you should all have a copy of. If you don't, there's some copies up here. This is basically the Bible that this caucus operates within. Robert's rules, Robert's rules come into play only when the bylaws do not speak to those particular issues or concerns related to a parliamentary or accepted procedure. But Robert's rules, certainly, if it's not addressed in the bylaws, can be utilized and should be respected.
Is that a preference of the chair, or is that just,
No, I think it's just a standard operating procedure.
Okay.
I can answer.
And maybe Josh can add to that. So, Josh?
Dante's right. In the absence of party constitution, party bylaws, or caucus bylaws, we defer to Robert's rules. So in this case, the question is, and I'm reading from Robert's Rules of Order, 11th edition. This is regarding agendas provided in advance. In some organizations, it is customary to send each member in advance of a meeting an order of business or agenda, with some indication of the matters to be considered under each heading. Such an agenda is often provided for information only, with no intention or practice of submitting it for adoption, unless a pre-circulated agenda is formally adopted at the session to which it applies. It is not binding as to the detailed order of consideration. So in this case, the agenda is not binding until it's approved, until it's adopted.
So we have to vote on an agenda
So
tonight.
you have to adopt the agenda.
Okay.
Does that answer your,
It answers my question. Can I continue?
yes, please?
The reason I was pointed about my question was because when we met here on the 22nd, it was the wish of the body to have a complete slate to be elected on. Yet when the agenda came out, it didn't call for a vote on the chair, and it didn't call for a vote for an SEC Connie.
Brickwood, we spent 4 hours here looking through the bylaws and talking with the Democratic parliamentarian. And what he said was that what occurred was legal, and he affirmed that we were legitimate officers and that we operated the 22nd meeting without really that knowledge, but Dante had already acknowledged that we were a credible group of officers. In the 4-hour talk, what was brought out was that there was a vacancy as far as the officers went. And so Elmer called for nominations, and officers then declared. And that's how the officers were selected. That can happen when there is a vacancy. And since the caucus had not operated for 4 years, that's what occurred. Both Juanita and I don't understand the intricacies of the bylaws for the party, the bylaws for the caucus, nor Robert's rules. But Bill Pruitt explained very clearly that we legitimately held these offices. That night, on the 22nd, I kept on saying, I'm not resigning, because I knew that we were legitimate. And that's the reason for these minutes. Now, if you want to take it up, you take it up with the parliamentarian and with the chair of the party, Dante Carpenter.
It's reflected incorrectly in the minutes on item 5. It should read motion to request by members to request election of all seats. And office to consider redo should be omitted. That does not reflect what happened.
Chair, I think I'm trying to move past the 25th, because if we enter into a conversation about the 25th and its very legitimacy, then we're going to have to talk a little bit about why we did not, as caucus members or as Native Hawaiian members of the Democratic Party, receive notification about that particular meeting, which was at the convention. And I'll remind the body. I'll remind the body, Madam Chair.
It was verified that every person who was registered at the convention received notification. Now, if you didn't read your emails, that was your problem.
Madam Chair.
Yes?
Yeah, all right. If it's all right, I can speak to this a bit. Knowing that this argument would, or this issue would come up, I spoke to Bill Pewitt this afternoon to try to clarify some of this. And as part of that, well, what your bylaws say, and what I'd said previously, well, let me say this. What the bylaws say, and what the caucus is bound to follow, is the bylaws. In absence of the bylaws, you have the party constitution and bylaws. In absence of that, you have Robert's rules. What your bylaws say is that elections for officers are held in the March of even-numbered years. Okay, that's what it says. So that's when elections for the entire slate take place. Now, I know I had said previously that in order to try and make everyone happy and try to move forward, that it was my hope that we could, play fast and loose. And because it's become an issue, we have to go back to the guiding document, which in this case is the bylaws. So the election that took place on the 25th, how the parliamentarian interprets it is the election that took place on the 25th was to fill vacancies that existed on the steering committee, which some people may call the executive committee, but the bylaws refer to them as the steering committee. So the elections that took place on the 25th were to fill vacancies on the steering committee. And because the bylaws don't speak to quorum requirements, because the bylaws don't speak to notice requirements, it is, you may not like that, there were such a few number of people there, and you may not like that you may or may not have received notice, but because we're dealing with this issue, what we have to go by is the bylaws.
So if we go to the bylaws state March of every even numbered year, correct?
Yes.
So if we're going to be so hard on line about following rules, does that legitimize that particular meeting?
Well, let me say this. How the parliamentarian, from my conversation with him, as I understand it, is he interpreted the election that took place on the 25th as a filling of vacancies. Bill Pewitt.
Did he use this?
Yeah.
Well,
so in your bylaws.
No,
okay. Well, let me get to that. So section 5. Let me go back. Article 3, officers. Section 5, vacancies. Any vacancy caused by death, resignation, removal, disqualification, or otherwise of any officer shall be filled by the steering committee. In the event of a vacancy in any office other than the chairperson, such a vacancy may be filled temporarily by appointment by the chairperson until such time as the steering committee shall fill the vacancy. Vacancies occurring in officers appointed at the discretion of the steering committee may be filled by the steering committee, may be filled as the steering committee shall determine. So because the caucus had been, hibernating for an extended period, and elections hadn't taken place in March, as the bylaws, right. So how that can be interpreted is now there's no officers. So there were vacancies that took place, that occurred. And so in an attempt to reorganize, the people present at the meeting on May 25th took it upon themselves to fill the vacancies. So, like I said, I understand that that's, because it was such a small group, and because I know a lot of people, yeah. But again, we have to go back to this is what the bylaws say, and this is the document that you're required to follow. Having said that, and I've said it previously, I strongly advise that the bylaws be reworked and modified to prevent this sort of thing from happening again, and to make to make things more clear in the future. Like I said, including a requirement for quorum, including a requirement for notice. So that there's more transparency and there's more, right.
More what?
Grounding.
Josh?
Yeah.
So there's more people here to vote tonight than there was in that election. That doesn't seem grounded.
Well, again, we can vote tonight on the vacancies that exist tonight. Now, I say all that because the bylaws speak to vacancies on the steering committee, which is entirely separate and distinct from the two SEC representative spots. In talking to Lynn and in talking to Bill again this afternoon, both those spots need to be filled.
Oh, that's not what's reflected in the minutes.
I understand that. I understand
that.
Well, because yes, that's incorrect. The elections that took place for the SEC spots on the 25th, because it's a slightly different procedure, the secretary of the party and the parliamentarian, and I agree with them, the election for the SEC spots weren't valid, and so those need to be redone. That's entirely separate from the officers and the steering committee of the caucus. Okay, so I know not everyone likes that, but because there's a disagreement, you were forced to go to the bylaws.
I just have a question. So are you saying that there was no election for the female and male SEC members at this May 25th meeting as reflected in the minutes?
Well, what I'm saying is that
correct?
Well, there may have been an election that took place, but
was there, Juanita?
There was an election that
for the SEC male and female?
Yes.
So you didn't step up at a SEC meeting and volunteer to be it?
What we did was, and I want to go back a little bit to before we carry forward with what your question is about the SEC, if that's okay. The intention of these bylaws, like what Josh is saying, was created by some of the founding members that are in this room, like Lynette and Lemomi. So it really helped me more to spend time talking with them, looking at what they did with regards to the intention. So now that we have a better I have a better understanding of what the intentions were as far as the whole bylaws are concerned. I feel that what we're doing is in proper order. That's my opinion as vice chair and what happened that particular day. Now, asking about the SCC, we were present in the room because we went through the whole slate with Elmer, what seats needed to be filled. And so Elmer gave us the info that we needed to And at that meeting, Elmer also made it clear he wished to resign as chair. So again, he did resign as chair at that meeting, and that's why we moved forward to go ahead and place who wanted to be the different officers. But what he then did was, because we didn't have enough people to fill the other slots at the time, he agreed to take on the role of treasurer secretary. So that group that was there, all of us that are, except for Elmer, that are here now, were present, plus the neighbor island people that were here. So, and we did vote on SCC church. We went through the slate. So we didn't have any discussion about the members at large. That, because we didn't have enough people in the room to go down that path.
Chair. I think we have no doubt that there was, I think, we have no doubt that the 25th was done in good faith. And then we fast forward to October 22nd. We had 20-something people in this room. And although it's not reflected in the minutes, the body did vote, or did agree, or we did come to a consensus that when we reached this particular evening, it would be a full slate of officers to be elected. And that's where my question, and why would we want to approve an agenda that is not reflective of the entire body's wishes last time?
I never agreed to resign.
Nobody
There's
asked
nobody's
you to
asking
resign.
anybody to resign.
And
Nobody said resign.
Can I,
And so that's why the questions,
if can, I'd like
Lemomi.
Lemomi to make comment.
I was not at either meeting. I was not at either meeting. So I come to this meeting, I think, objectively.
Or not enough information, one of the two.
She's got the floor.
And so I just kind of like to share my mana'o in this regard. The caucus is reflective of the members. The caucus is reflective of the members. And what the caucus does, and the leaders of the caucus, is they move forward with agreements reached by the membership. And in any organization, your leaders are elected by the membership. Okay, so what I observe in this is that, as has been pointed out, the caucus has been dormant. I have not received any notices of any meetings. Had I might have come, but I have not. And so, kudos to those who have stepped up to try to bring life back to this organization. At the May meeting, and in reading the bylaws, at the May meeting, it appears that Elmer resigned, so that we created a vacancy as the chairperson. And then, I guess whomever was there also elected the vice chair, secretary, treasurer, etc., etc. But my thought is that the membership who was not at that meeting, that did not know that elections were going to be held, did not have opportunity to have their voice heard. I think it's wonderful that everybody here stepped up to volunteer. But I also think that in the October meeting, just reading the minutes, that maybe the intent was that, everybody here volunteered to kind of kukua to make this happen and to steer us. But with the thought that we're going to make this okay by sending out a notice to everybody now and do an election for all positions. In my mind, that's, and having not been, and I'm not taking anybody's side or anything like that, but if I'm looking at what this body is supposed to represent and the fairness to the membership, then I think that the members should have received notice. When Elmer resigned, the membership should have received notice about that. And based on what I'm seeing here, all these other positions were vacant. The membership should have received notice, and that an official election was going to be held. It does not appear that that occurred. What appears to me what occurred was those at this meeting, and again, much kudos to them in an effort to move this organization, volunteered their time and took the initiative to fill these slots. But again, I go by looking at the minutes of the October 22nd meeting, it appears intent was that the election would be for all positions and that the membership agreed with that. That's what I see here, unless the minutes are recorded in error.
Leimomi, in a perfect world, we would have had the membership. From May up until October, we were trying to get the membership from Elmer, and he didn't make a number of meetings. So we tried our best, and we've been building this caucus virtually from nothing until we finally got the membership list from Flo Conky, and I think from Lynette.
And the party.
Yeah, and from the party. And that took us many moons before we could finally find out who was in the caucus at one time.
Leila, but wouldn't you think that now that you have, I'm guessing, a pretty decent list by looking around the room, I recognize a number of leaders in our community who are our members, who have come back, some have come back and some new, that you would now want to formalize the election of officers. Because you now have more of the membership
Thank you,
present,
Leimomi. Thank you.
You gave notice
Thank you.
in this meeting.
Yeah, she has the floor.
Thank you, Chair's letting me speak. So the October 22nd meeting that occurred, where a lot of, when you look at the issues that happened there, the idea was at that meeting to move forward with the existing group, the existing officers, and talk about doing, the intent was for us to leave the existing officers and move forward to fill the vacancies. However, there were discussions that were going on separately from the chair and this body that were put together with help from Senator Galutaria, where he then introduced, now this is between the October 22nd meeting and the May 25th meeting. So between May 25th and October 22nd, Senator Galutaria asked to have discussion about what was going on so that he could help us get caucus back on its feet and moving forward. Okay, and this is important to say so that you can really follow why where we're at right now. So at that meeting, he contacted Hawaiian, he got Elmer, he got Janine there, Esther King, Leona was there, Peter Akol was there. So these people were called. They did not, no one contacted the chair. I was not aware until I got there that chair hadn't been called. Okay. But when we sat down and we started to discuss what should happen, the idea came out at that time based on where Rickwood had started with us, is to look at maybe trying to, because there was so few at the May 25th meeting, perhaps we should go ahead and have an open slate. That's where it started. In that small
One correction. Excuse me, my name is Vice Chair.
when it's your turn,
She has the floor, Pohai. Pohai,
I
you
did
do
that
not-
email.
you're out of order. Pohai, you're out of order.
To Elmer. It was quite rude, actually. That's what prompted me to come.
You're out of order,
She
Pohai.
had noticed.
She can't hear you.
I think, Chair, may I? You know,
No,
If I can finish with
still talking,
Leimomi,
Rickwood.
because you're bringing up very important information about how you feel the body, the whole body needs to respond to things, and I can't agree with you more. I was very happy as we started moving along to just have people start acknowledging this needs to happen. From May 25th until our previous meetings that we were having with these other groups that were trying to put together things to make a bigger body come. It was difficult because the key person being Elmer at the time, and I'm not being disrespectful to Elmer, I'm just saying that we were put in this place based on your bylaws, based on who was chair at the time, this is what needs to happen. And so if the caucus was going to continue, so we stepped up to take that responsibility to help us go. We had no idea if we got our notices. And I talked with other people, I'm sorry that you didn't get yours, but I did talk to quite a few people at that convention that were active in different Hawaiian activities and organizations. Did they know that there's a Hawaiian caucus election going on? And a lot of people told me, yeah, I do, I heard about it, but I have to go to this other meeting, or I have this other appointment to do this, and that's fine. You know, I can just talk to who I knew. But it was important to me and the people that came to that room to focus on what was going on that day to help us move to the next level. Like I said, between that date to where we are today, other groups were saying, well, maybe we should just try and do open slate. Maybe we should talk about these other things. But I didn't have enough information, because we didn't even have bylaws. We didn't get the bylaws till very later on. And we couldn't get the bylaws until, and I know that Leela and myself and Wapuahala were all trying to connect, and Brickwood, we talked to him when we were going through all of this. We asked for someone, can you please get us and the party didn't have a lot of the information because a lot of that didn't get passed forward to the party. So what I'm trying to say is all these steps could have been done on an entire basis earlier, but it didn't. It didn't happen that way. Because we couldn't get to all of you to let you all know to come. You know, that's what I wanted to be clear about. And the meetings that took place were, my understanding from parliamentarian and our chair, Dante, is discussions. They were not official meetings. They were just discussions to help us build what we needed to do to figure out how to build our leadership. Again, this information was not inclusive of the chair. And it was not inclusive of, not because we didn't want the chair to be there necessarily, I'm not sure, but it didn't include her. And so therefore, and it didn't include the body. It was just this group of people organizing.
The very chair was in question, though. The very chair, Juanita, was in question. The party didn't even know what to say. When I inquired, well, in the bylaws it says March of, but so the very question of who's in chair. I mean, listen, I'm gladly to stepped up, but I want to know who's the chair. And so in our discussions, because I don't want to be misrepresented in this dialogue.
I don't want you to.
Because it's all coming from, in my opinion, the right place.
Thank you.
You know, I'm the chair of the Senate Committee on Hawaiian Affairs. I want this caucus to be mana, and that's why.
And all of us. I think the people in this room
that's why we're here tonight. But just let me say that there was even a question of who the chair was. So when I asked Elmer to put something together, it was based on the fact that he could be the chair too.
For you, it was a question. But when I went back to party to confirm who was recognized as chair after May 25th, all the paperwork and information was passed on to party, and party acknowledged that Leela Hubbard was the chair.
That's fine. Everything's fine. I mean, I'm all good with that. Okay. I'm good. But we're here now and want to move forward.
And so, I'm sorry, I have a question here.
I'm Mike. It just seems to me that, thank you for all the hard work and heavy lifting you guys have done stepping up to make this caucus come back to life. But it seems like it's clear in Article 3, Section 4, that if the officers don't resign, the only way to make them resign is to send a notice of a meeting specifically designed to force them out. And then 2/3 of the members have to do that. I don't see that's what this is about tonight. I don't think that was the intent of anybody to do that tonight. And I don't think any notice was given about that meeting. It seems like the bylaws are clear. If our officers don't resign, well, the next election is in 2014.
And I'd like to acknowledge.
You know, this is my second meeting now. My name is Joel Lewis, for those of you that don't know. And really, what I'm hearing and what I'm feeling is a lot of energy. A lot of people want to get involved but they want to they want to do it right. That's what I'm hearing, is they want to, I mean, including myself, I'm willing to take part in this caucus, but I want to make sure we move forward together. And I think what's at stake here is the participation, the involvement, the activity, that the willingness for people to step forward, I think, is at risk if we don't somehow agree to move forward with reaffirming the support of Leila or whatever. That's what I see is at risk, is the involvement and the synergy that you got here will be gone soon. So I don't know, it seems like the conversation is going back and forth, what happened here, what happened there, but I think the bottom line is, in order to keep this momentum going, we need to reaffirm the support of chair or re-elect a new board. That's what I see. Otherwise, I think over time, people are just going to start feeling not a part of this committee, this caucus.
And I'd like to comment on that. According to parliamentarian, and I'm just repeating what parliamentarian is saying, okay? Parliamentarian is saying we were there to fill the vacancy, period. We were there to fill the vacancies because we were there. Notice was properly given. It was put out there. That part is pretty clear. The other officer seats are available, and that was agreed to also. I mean, that other meeting talked about the full slate, but information was lacking at that particular meeting when I called. Leila did not call for it. I called as the vice chair to ask for total slate. So I was out of order, and it was my mistake. And that's what I have been telling everybody here. And I want you to know too, with regards to what happened that day, what happened prior to, all the things that I've been learning has been a great experience for me to understand the really core protocol, fundamental things that we need to be strong on and sure of as we move forward, like you're saying. So I see, based on what we've been talking about and what the bylaws say, that were created by founding members that are here, and that almost everybody in the room that came the last time agreed on most of the things in the bylaws, with certain changes that need to happen based on what Josh was informing us to make a tighter bylaw, that we can still move forward and go down this route, because the steering committee is more than just the people who are sitting here. You know, the three people that are sitting here. You know, we don't have our treasurer, secretary. All I have is an email that said he would resign. So I guess that's official notice. You know, again, these are the seats that are open, and it still makes that whole body functional so that we can move forward to do the issues. But if we're going to, I'm sorry.
After you call, I have a question.
Thank you. So I don't think we're trying to stop the process. We're just asking to have the group acknowledge that the protocol was followed, all the information had been confirmed, everything to this point that you are reading in the minutes that I've presented were as they occurred at that meeting with the intention that was supposed to happen, and that we would like to move forward to do that, and we still can. But, you know, if you're going to call for us to change the agenda, then we have to go ahead and create another meeting to change the agenda. So what I was told by parliamentarian is that if statements come back, the correct response is your point is not well taken. Okay, that's the parliamentarian. As a Hawaiian, that doesn't always feel right to me to talk to us as a group that way. But I also feel very strongly that it was my call, it was not the chair's call on what happened. And the chair took me after the meeting, explained to me what her situation was, and I went down to party and went and spent every day that I needed to going ahead and researching everything that was done. And this is what has come back to this point. We have the protocol and the things that we should abide by because they were put out there as part of our bylaws. If we cannot follow what the bylaws are, we going to just always change when a group, if the body is to care about what this caucus is about, we should stand by what the bylaws say. And that's my monotony about this. Like I said, if I go to the level of saying what parliamentarian is saying, that's the protocol of the party. But if I go by what I'm asking all of you to consider, is to allow us to move forward still with a strong group of people that will make up the rest of the steering committee, which should actually be called the executive committee, because we have been in existence for, I think, 15 years total. So that being said, for us to have lost all this time, what was recommended is that we put this agenda out, we put the minutes out there for people to review. We were the people that were present at that meeting. I wish to God more of you were there and that you had been notified or you found the time to be present. But I think at this point, we have to move forward like you're saying, Joe, and allow this to go. Before you speak, Lemoni, I'd like to answer this young lady here.
I just wanted some clarification. I thought that Rickwood said earlier, he asked a question about accepting, voting on the agenda, right? And he said, yes, we're supposed to, right? And then everybody jumped into discussing these points on the agenda. Were we supposed to make a motion to accept the agenda and then second, and then we discuss? Because we're supposed to do it right. We're supposed to make a motion. But you guys had jumped the gun, so I'm still waiting when we're going to make the motion to accept the agenda and then discuss it. But
So if this, Mary, why don't you move?
I move that we make a... We accept the agenda.
I second.
And then...
We got a second.
Then
We did it, we
no,
got a second.
but we already went and discussed them. So now what?
Hi, Poka.
Hi, Madam Chair, may I speak on the main motion before us now? I'd like to add to the agenda, new business.
Go for the agenda.
Yeah, that's not on here.
Do you want to add that at this time? Okay. Right now, Puka, because of the issues that are in front of us right now, I don't know if we'll have time to add it to new business.
Well,
but we can...
That's beside the point. If the new business cannot be addressed,
then
we address it at the next meeting. But I think it's appropriate to at least have an amended agenda item.
Josh Frost for Puka is standing in kind of to help us as rules.
In order to, you make a motion to adopt the agenda. You make a second. If there was, if you wanted to amend the agenda, there can be discussion, and then it's voted on.
Okay.
It's not, I mean, in this case, the chair doesn't have the authority to say, we're not amending the agenda.
Okay.
If the body can make amendments, vote on them, and then vote to approve the agenda is adopted, or is amended.
So that's, right now then,
So
what
he's asking to amend the agenda to include new business.
And so we're asking the body then, at that point, you ask the body if they'd like to go that direction? Is that what you're saying, Josh?
Second, we have,
Yeah, he made a
okay,
motion.
now we vote on it.
Okay, all those in favor?
Wait. More discussion.
I still have the floor, having made the initial motion, if I may advocate for the reason for my proposed amendment to the agenda. I believe that the caucus really should be more assertive in its actions and merely a discussion of who should lead the caucus. I believe there are many very important issues before the Hawaiian community, and that the agenda as presently submitted does not provide for that opportunity. And I came here not because of the question of who should lead, but I would like to get into issues that we should take out into the community. So
Good
that's
point.
what I feel.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So I just have a couple of points of order here. I'm trying to understand Puka's amendment. So Puka is I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I should address you properly. For the maker of the amendment to the motion, is the amendment to include in the agenda under new business issues of concern to the Hawaiian community? What is the exact amendment that you are proposing?
Madam Chair, may I respond?
Yes.
If it's, the second part of the agenda, Hayden says, Forum Committee to develop, advocate, and follow bills or resolutions regarding Hawaiian issues. We were going to ask if there are any additions to the concerns that were brought out from the previous meeting. We had a whole list. Did you get the papers?
All I'm looking at is the current agenda.
No, that we have
No, I did not.
18 on the October 22nd agenda, Hayden. So maybe your issue is on there.
It's probably not, and that's not the whole point. Usually, in an agenda, you always open it up for new business, new issues. Now, in the current agenda, it says involving our state legislation. And the issues that address the Hawaiian community is not necessarily only limited to what is considered in state legislation. There's a whole bunch of things we need to be talking about. What happens in education, what happens in finance, what happens in many, many other things. And so I would like to see an expansion of issues and discussions and concerns before the Congress, so that we can really expand ourselves rather than being limited to what legislation is all. And so new business, I'm not suggesting, I have a particular interest in adding a new business, but I'm not saying that it is only for that interest, because I think the members here should have the right to be much broader than just what has been introduced.
Okay, what specifically are you including in your amendment, Hayden?
Well, for my amendment, that's all I'm leaving it to. At the appropriate time, I would like to take the floor, and if the opportunity is available, I'd like to talk about something that I referred to previously, and I don't mean to get too deeply into it, but the issue of deep culture, how we relate with one another.
Okay, let's vote now if we're going to amend. Go ahead.
Wait, still discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I might, would allow me, the amendment that is being made is simply to add to the agenda new business. New business. Okay, so that is the amendment to the initial motion. And under Robert's rules, we need to act on that amendment first before the main motion. Having said that, though, I also have amendment to the main motion, and that is to include in the agenda the approval of these minutes that have been circulated to us. That was the intent.
I believe the immediate pending question at the present time is the amendment, which is to add new business.
That is correct.
And nothing else should be considered unless it's
Okay, let's vote on it, please. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, so we're going to add new business.
Then I would like to make the amendment to add to the agenda approval of the minutes of the meetings of May 25th and October 22nd.
A second.
We started off with that and then we lost it.
So there's
Yeah.
one first.
And a second.
Okay.
Call for the question.
Call for the
Call the
question.
question.
Any discussion?
Yeah.
Well, I think people with the May 25th is a number of 5, right? And thus far, it's you two. Unless
three.
Roth is here.
Right here.
Okay, that could actually speak to the May
There's 3 of you guys.
25th minutes, right? So it's up to you 3.
Actually, don't people have to appear at the meeting for the minutes?
We need to get the minutes on the agenda first.
We're not there tonight.
Yeah, we need to get the minutes on the agenda.
Right, but when we come time for voting, we have to make it perfectly clear who was there.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
You know, and who can approve, so I think separately you have to take a vote
Okay, so let's
on May.
vote on the May 25th minutes. Are there any corrections or additions?
Point of order. Point of order.
There's a motion.
Point of order. The motion is to amend the initial motion
sorry.
on the
Okay.
agenda to include on the agenda the subject of the approval of the minutes of May 25th and October 22nd. And so I call for the question.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. The 3 who are eligible Do you have any corrections to the May 25th?
Madam Chair, we're not done with the agenda.
We're still,
We're still in the agenda dialogue.
Oh, we
right?
have to accept the agenda first.
Oh, not yet, though. I'd like to move for an amendment to the agenda, that's right.
Okay.
Okay. I'd like to move that we include in the agenda the position of chair and SCC Connie. And we have two members at large here to the slate for election this evening. And that's up to the body if they want to. Got a second one?
I'll second.
In the discussion, I'd say that if the chair hasn't resigned, then an amendment is out of order because it takes a meeting with advance notice.
Didn't we do that? I mean,
The October 22nd was actually discussed.
Yeah, I didn't get any, there was
The notice
nothing
to the
about
entire
notice that
party.
we're going to have that we're going to remove the
We're not
chair who
removing,
hasn't
she might
resigned.
win. We're not assume she's not gonna win.
No, that's not it. You can't even have the election unless the chair has resigned.
When, is this in discussion? I would like to share something. Now, the 22nd, the reason the body voted that they wanted all the officers voted elected was because they wanted to move forward with confidence. We were not asking anybody to resign. We were assuming they were running for the same position. We don't even know who's going to win.
You're not running, you're already
So nobody was asked to resign, ever. The reason the body agreed in consensus that night was because we want to move forward with confidence in our leadership. And actually, Lemomi described it perfectly, why that action was taken. The will of the body that was present. Now, they did send out an email to the entire Democratic Party, because I received it, from Dante's email, for notice of that meeting.
If we're in discussion, I'd just like to speak in support of the motion. And the reason being is exactly what I stated earlier, is so that this group can move together in confidence. Whether it's reaffirming the current positions that you hold as you being the vice chair and chair, or electing you, but we just need to move forward, get over this hump, which seems now to have taken 2 meetings, and move forward. I think we're at that stage where we just need to move forward and decide what we're going to do, because it seems like we're stuck.
Yeah. Juanita.
Yes, may I seek clarification, please?
Juanita was recognized.
She was recognizing me, I think.
No.
No, okay.
Yeah, I would like to comment on what Joe's saying right now. So, again, I want to reiterate, what I'm hearing from everybody is it's not a discussion about anyone resigning or losing a position as to where we are right now as far as the existing steering committee officers that happened on May 25th. We're not talking about any of that not happening. What we're talking about is trying to move the process forward, and the things that we have to do to move the process forward, it's my understanding, is the first thing we have to do is accept the agenda, which is still in discussion right now with amendments, because we haven't accepted the complete agenda yet. So we're asking to take the current agenda and add amendments to that and have the body accept what is happening there. That's the first thing. And then the second thing will be that we would move forward with when would those amendments start to go through process, correct?
Correct.
Right. So again, the amendments would probably be asked to move forward to the next general membership meeting? Is that what you're saying? Or when are you trying to resolve at this meeting?
This is the meeting that the agenda is for.
I see.
If I can speak really quickly, the way it works in a normal meeting is you bring a motion to make amendments to approve the agenda. Someone will make a motion. We've had motions to amend it. We're agreeing on them, we're voting on them. Once that is finalized and there are any more objections as to what the agenda looks like, we vote to agree to the agenda. Once we accept the agenda, we will begin the meeting.
Okay. Josh?
Well, no, I think she had something to say first.
Sorry.
Okay, Leilani.
Yes, I would like to seek clarification from the mover of that amendment. And the clarification that I'm seeking is, by adding to the agenda, I'm assuming this is adding under general membership election meeting for the following open positions. You want to add SCC, Connie, and chair. So the clarification I'm seeking is it to discuss that, and then if the body, after hearing the discussions, moves that we should have an election for those positions, or it could move to reaffirm the decisions that were made at the May meeting. So I'm trying to see what is the intention of the mover of this amendment, to have that discussion, or in fact, by putting it on the agenda in this way, by just adding it, that you're saying you want an election. Because it makes a difference. For me, it would make a difference on how I vote. And if you'll indulge me for a minute, I will explain. I heard the vice chair say that there was some discussion, I'm assuming with the party parliamentarian, correct? And that the Democratic Party parliamentarian has indicated that the election or appointments, however you want to refer to it, that was made on May 25th, that it was proper, that the party parliamentarian has said that. And I'm assuming that when you're saying that, you're talking about all of these positions of chair, vice chair, secretary, treasurer, etc. Correct? Okay. Then the second part to that is, I have to ask a question. Have some of these people resigned? Is that why we see on the current agenda election for co-vice chair, treasurer, etc.?
Yes.
Because have they subsequently resigned? Okay. So the choice we will have, if we put this on the agenda, depending on what the maker's intent was, is for us as a body to decide to accept the party's parliamentarian's decision that reaffirms that the election that was held on May 25th was proper and correct. If so, we do not vote tonight on the chair and on the
Vice chair.
SCC.
the SCC.
No, that was my,
Connie,
was
correct?
to add those two.
Okay, yeah, okay. So if in the later discussion we affirm that we agree with the party parliamentarian that was done properly, we don't vote for those positions tonight because we accept the party parliamentarian's decision. So what I'm seeking from the maker of the motion is clarification of, when you want this included on the agenda, are you saying you want it included with the intention of holding an election for the chair and the SCC Connie, or are you asking for it to be included on the agenda for purposes of discussing whether we should be, whether we accept the parliamentarian's decision or whether we should be voting for the SCCB? What is the intent of the amendment that you have made?
May I? Yes. It's two parts. The very legitimacy of the May 25th elections become suspect because they do not adhere to bylaws. The bylaws that we have are very clear. March, even number years, I believe it is. So therefore, the bylaws were already violated just by this act. Secondly, the body came to the 22nd meeting and was clear that they wanted to see a clear slate from top to bottom. That was their wish, and it was reflected. It's supposed to have been reflected in the minutes. It was a part of the business of the night, and so therein lies why I felt we should have a complete slate offered tonight.
So may I respond?
I'm sorry, but I didn't see it that way, Brickwood, because she made it very clear that they were voted in May and that she was not going to resign or sit down from her position. So at that time, I only heard that it was the treasurer secretary, Elmer's position, that we would find, but I couldn't vote at that time. So unless we have a clear record of who did what when, it is the question.
The whole minutes is there.
And I don't call that verbatim minutes, and at this point, I think we're gonna need to really look at some of this stuff.
So to go back to what you're both coming back and forth, I'm going to agree with you, Leimomi, on what you're saying. The issue is, are we in agreement with what the parliamentarian has dictated on behalf of the party? Or is the intention of the maker of the amendment is not in agreement with the parliamentarian of the party with regards to what he's saying? Because what you're mentioning has to do with a March even year election.
Well, I'm simply in agreement with the body.
But what actually occurred was a filling of the vacancy, is what the parliamentarian says took precedence. So the parliamentarian is saying what took precedence was the filling of the vacancy that occurred, that had happened as of May 25th. And that actually the October 22nd meeting was somewhat out of order because that information was not clarified at that meeting. We had discussion based on what I thought was to open whole slate, but it wasn't until we got information from parliamentarian himself, and this was present with Dante, our chair, that was the order which should follow. And I think Josh went to that at the very beginning of this whole discussion, that the issue is about the filling of vacancy and that our seats were proposed based on the filling of the vacancy, period. And that the next thing would be whatever other issues that we want to bring up, you would hold that, you call for another meeting. Josh?
Madam Chair.
Hayden?
Madam Chair, may I offer a suggestion? Normally, when a parliamentarian makes a suggestion to the chair will then announce the chair's decision pursuant to the parliamentarian's advice. The chair having made the decision, it's up to the body to contest the chair's decision, and that way you decide either one way or the other way. So in this particular case, I would suggest that the amendment presently on the floor is out of order because it contradicts a parliamentarian's advice. And then let the body simply vote up or down whether or not it supports the chair's decision. And in that way, rather than continuing the argument, a decision will have been made and we can proceed directly one way or the other way in terms of the meeting.
Thank you, Hayden. So maybe we can move along.
Well, let's finish discussion.
I don't think you can dismiss that you have a motion on the floor to amend the agenda, and we have a second, and so I think we're in discussion now still on that issue. So I would like to ask the maker of the motion if he would consider that the intent is to allow for this discussion to occur. So here's what would happen if you went along with that. When we get to this subject, as Poca said, the parliamentarian, the party parliamentarian has given advice to the chair to affirm the decision that was made. The chair, I'm going to assume, will declare agreement with the parliamentarian. Under Robert's rules, any one of us can then appeal the decision of the chair. Okay, so someone can appeal the decision of the chair, meaning that they don't agree with the decision of the chair. We then have to act on that appeal. On that appeal, it could be that everybody here, or maybe the majority might say, you know what, we support the decision of the chair, meaning that she adopted the parliamentarian's recommendation. Or it could go the other way, where the the chair's position fails. In which case, if your decision fails, then we're back to an election for the chair and the SCC Connie. But then it will also lead to procedural, and that procedural discussion about whether you can do that at tonight's meeting for those two positions, because proper notice would not have been given to the membership that we were going to elect for those two positions tonight. So I'm asking the maker of the motion if he would please, in clarifying his intent, that his intent be to allow for that discussion.
Okay, I'll agree. I agree. Do I have to restate the motion, or?
No, you're just at the moment.
I'm just clarifying what the motion,
Yes.
what direction the motion is going to go.
Because all you're asking for is that the subject of the election for the SCC County and the chair be put on the agenda. Correct?
Yeah, okay, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
So now, if everybody understands that, the chair, we can call for the question and
Can I ask for just one clarification? We're going to put the subject on the agenda, but we aren't going to vote tonight to change the chair, because that would violate the bylaws and require a change in bylaws, which requires notice.
So it would not require a new election.
It would not require a change in the bylaws.
Well, then
What
it's
is
not-
that question is whether the election that was made in May was proper in accordance with the bylaws. That is what is in question. That's why all this dialogue going on.
That's not what I heard in Ripley's motion.
No, so we're not in that dialogue. All Brickwood is asking for is an amendment to the main motion, which is to approve the agenda, and he's asking that the subject of the SCC County and chair election be placed on the agenda. And then we're gonna have the detailed discussion on it.
Very good.
Just wasting time.
Thank you.
So I call for the question.
Yeah, let's call for the question on whether the elections of the chair and the male SCC will be placed on the agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
They need to actually write down
Yeah,
the
the
numbers.
division, yeah.
So that's
Council,
the division
yes.
of the House.
Yes.
And we wanna ask,
Raise
to raise their hands.
So can you please raise hands
In favor.
in favor?
In favor.
Okay,
We
wait a
have
minute,
somebody
wait a minute.
to count.
Who gets to vote?
No.
Anybody that's a member of the caucus.
The
Any
body-
member of the caucus.
Of this caucus?
Yeah.
Right,
Hawaiian caucus.
right.
Fill out a form that looks like this.
No. When we came in, we were told if you didn't fill a form, you signed in on that
If you
form.
want to join this caucus, you need to fill out this form.
Well,
That way, that was not what we were told when we
No,
came in.
confrontation.
in the beginning, Josh put it on the computer.
Yeah, we got them all.
Yeah.
You can fill it out right now.
Okay.
You that was a member. But did you fill out a thing that says, I want to be a member of the Hawaiian caucus?
We put it
This is a
online.
caucus form, and it is going to be put online.
Yeah.
Jason's going to put it online, but it's not online now. That's why you can fill it out tonight. Party member and a caucus member.
Yep.
You have to be both to vote.
Everyone if anyone hasn't filled
If you
out
haven't
that
filled it out, I need
form
it right
that
now.
wants
I
to
need right this
be
minute.
Mine?
We did.
Fill it out.
Okay, so I want to clarify a couple things, because I'm in uncomfortable water, and so I ran out to, get some guidance. So, so because this body is considering rejecting the recommendation of the parliamentarian, and that's not something I've ever heard of before. So what I'm going to advise is if the body chooses to make that decision and disregard the recommendation of the parliamentarian and hold all new elections, then basically what happened is if anyone who's unhappy with that decision would need to appeal to the state central.
Right.
So I'm just letting you know that because listen, you know what? I'm just trying to do the best I can. So
Not an easy job.
You know, so just because whatever you guys decide, I just, you know.
Okay, those in favor?
Okay, we got one more. Wait, one more form. One more, just one more form. Give me that, Mary, give me that quick. We're going to take a vote.
You know, I have a point of order here, you know, the call for the question was already taken, and now there seems to be a hustle to get others to fill out the application, which I think unfairly already convolutes this election.
Joe, can I make a comment on that? When people came in the door, some were under the impression that
They didn't have to fill
they
that out.
didn't have to fill this part out.
Well, the question shouldn't have been called for then, and it shouldn't have been taken, because already you can see kind of where the votes are going, and now we're trying to
Yeah,
submit.
no, but what I'm trying to tell you is these people thought that they were
They already voted.
part of
They
the
held up their
member.
hand without
So
having their
that's
form.
why
They
they're
thought they
just
already
following
were.
through.
They already
So
thought
they've
they
been
were.
participating.
Just from signing in, they thought that they were a
When they
member.
came in, they were under
Come on, you
The
guys.
advancement of our people.
Let's call this to order. There was a person from the party who inputted people on the computer, and he said that they didn't have to fill out that piece of paper, so they're online as members of the caucus already.
Yeah, well, they're
Now
members of the
you're
party. He
saying,
was checking their
now,
party membership.
no, he was putting them online.
And he was also doing this.
Yeah.
Yes, he was.
So, those people did not fill out a form because they're already on the computer.
And that could be so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there were a number of them.
So we're just
So if you want another
sure.
piece of paper from them, they can sign. Okay, let's take the vote
And may I
for...
actually make one comment as chair of the Environmental Caucus? I recognize as Environmental Caucus, we include anyone who cares about the environment. I had thought that the Hawaiian Caucus supported anyone who cares about the Hawaiians. And in the Environmental Caucus, if you walk in that day and you sign up, you're a Democrat, you're part of the caucus, you have a voice. So I would hope you guys would welcome our voice as well. That's all I have.
And I think we do, like, just for me,
No,
when the question was called and people started voting.
No, and I understand.
I don't think that's fair.
No, you're right.
But we were just being clear, and people asked that they didn't recognize the fact that they had gone to Jason to complete things online, but we wanted to be, they thought that this is, Terry is saying, they also need to complete this document here.
Which they weren't aware
I
of.
think that's what they weren't aware
Which I
of,
don't
that
think he had.
additional
Because I
document.
needed them to fill that form out so I could give it to the chair.
Yeah,
So
I
the
don't-
chair would have a copy. See, that's the chair's copy. Jason would have filled it in electronically. She needs the hard copy. She needs a hard
Madam
copy.
Chair, call for the question.
Yes.
And please make
All
that
those-
real clear.
Yeah.
Yes, all those in favor of the amendment to have the elections placed on the agenda, raise your hand.
Not allowed.
That's not the question.
That's not the amendment.
We're calling with regards to go ahead.
Okay, so Rick wouldn't help me if you disagree, but the amendment made by member Rick Galateria was to amend the agenda to include the subject of the election of the SCC Kane and the chair.
Yeah.
That's all.
And we're voting on that. We're
It's like
not
call for the
doing-
question.
Disagree with the parliamentarian or agree?
Okay. Those in favor, raise your hands.
To what?
To putting the elections of the SCC mayor and the chair
Of the
on
motion that was moved by.
the agenda, Brickwood's agenda amendment.
I don't understand the question. You're saying to put you, re-elect you, is that what this question is?
No.
Okay.
Included on the agenda.
So that anybody can run for chair.
The validity of the election.
They're challenging
Okay.
the chair.
I'm challenging the chair.
And
Why?
Wait, wait, wait.
Challenging the chair.
Okay.
Lemon?
Okay. If I might help to clarify this. All we're doing right now is approving the agenda, nothing else.
Which
agenda? Okay, the agenda for this evening's meeting. Okay?
The original agenda.
The original agenda for this evening's meeting before us, that's all we're acting on, is approving the agenda. And so we have before us an amendment to add to this agenda the topic of the SCC, Kane, and chair election. That's all we're doing. We're adding that subject onto the agenda. If we approve that on the agenda, at some point in the business of the meeting this evening, we're going to have a discussion on that subject.
And does that take into account, again, the point where we were saying, is this in agreement with the parliamentary?
That's right. At that
or
point,
you're not in
that
agreement
is-
with the parliamentary?
That's right.
So if you are in favor of this amendment, you are not in agreement with the parliament.
No, you're not, that is not what you're voting on at this time.
But that's the
Only
intent,
vote-
Lemon.
That is the only intent, is to allow for that discussion to occur on the agenda. That's all. At this point, that is all that is being asked, is to have that subject included on the agenda.
Why?
to talk about it.
Okay, so the question is, why? What would be the purpose of including that on the agenda?
Yeah.
The purpose would be, I mean, we've heard already, let's see, varying views on whether the election that occurred on May 25th was legitimate or not. We've heard views expressed about the Democratic Party parliamentarian giving some advice to the chair. So in order for this group, membership as a whole, to act on how they feel about that, we need to have it officially on the agenda. If it's not on the agenda, then that subject will not be taken up any further this evening during this meeting.
And
that's the reason.
and the point of the parliamentarian was, based on your statement, that that discussion should be held in a future meeting. Any amendment?
Okay, so we're not talking about it. So let's not muddy it up. Don't muddy it up yet. Just act on the agenda. Just act on the agenda is what I recommend to everybody.
Madam Chair, I would, I don't know how we do this procedurally, but I'd like to offer a motion to withdraw the previous motion to the underlying question at hand, and to move forward with tonight's current agenda with the current officers slated. For me, the issue on the parliamentarian was never an issue, and as Hawaiians, I feel that for us to be arguing about Western imposed bylaws on us is just really unfortunate, because while we could use them as guidelines, I think what makes us special is that we go by consensus, like Leimomi had articulated earlier. So for tonight's purposes, I believe we should move forward and then revisit the other issues in the future. I don't think anybody here means any harm against anyone else. I would hate for all these things that are being imposed on us to bring us down and fight among each other.
Thank you.
Okay, so again, the motion would be to withdraw his motion under the underlying.
I can do that.
No, wait.
You can't make another motion.
Under Robert's rules, that will be out of order.
Who's the parliamentarian?
Yeah, I can do that. No, I can do that.
Oh, you can do that.
I can do that. And in the interest, see, this motion was done with the intention of moving this caucus forward, plain and simple. But if it's going to actually obstruct forward motion, then in the interest of the body, I'll withdraw my motion so that we can get together. But by the same token, I'll go another 4 hours if I feel it's not pono. I'll go another 4 hours. So we're gonna have to address this situation. We cannot be so random about how we pick our rules so that it serves our own purposes. And with that in mind, I will withdraw my motion, and let's get it on with what we need to get on with.
Thank you. So Esther, your motion is now.
Is to
There's no need for your motion.
But can someone move forward on the agenda?
So
Everything is accepted.
Let's listen to them.
No.
So now, may I call for the question on the main motion? So the main motion is to approve the agenda to include the new business and the minutes of the May and October meetings.
Right.
So that's the motion on the floor for all of us.
All those in favor?
Wait, we had a discussion about the correction wasn't addressed on the 22nd minutes on item 5.
So
Okay, all those in favor?
All.
Aye.
All those
Accepting
opposed?
the agenda. The agenda.
Okay, we're accepting the agenda as amended, adding new business and approval of the minutes.
Yes.
Okay, so, let's, Kohai, you have a correction to the minutes of the 22nd, did you say?
Then why don't we
Well,
move on to May 25th?
first, let's get rid of the May 25th minutes. Are those accepted by those who attended? Any objections? No, okay. Let's move on to October 22nd, Kohai.
Item 5, motion to request by members, request election of all seats.
Item 5.
Yeah. With the last sentence, omit offers to consider redo.
Oh, okay.
It's actually numbered
No, see,
incorrectly.
there's a 5 here.
Oh,
There's
yeah, it is.
5.
It should be, yeah, we got 5 twice and we have 4 twice.
That's what,
I'm not paying attention. What's the matter? You know I'm. Yeah. Good God. I'm sorry. You're not a good program.
yeah, it's what, 7 or 8? 7. Is that
It
7?
starts with motion to request.
I think that's 7.
All right, okay, that needs to be corrected too, I guess.
And the next one should be
And it
8.
should say, request election of all seats. And omit the last sentence.
They're talking. They're in charge.
So she's saying on that part, that's
Yeah.
where new parliament.
Well, the whole sentence is,
Motion to request by members.
yeah, it should say motion by members to request election of all seats.
All members to request election of all.
Yes, that's what happened.
No, that's not.
That is what happened. Offers- No, they discussed that they didn't want to do that, but that's what was voted on by the body. Offers to consider redo should be omitted.
There seems to be some discussion about whether that was true or not. For those who were there, are there any other takes on it? Esther, were you there?
Yes, I was there. That was my understanding. Again, I would just like to say that, going back to my earlier statement, I want to just see us move forward on the agenda, but that is what was said. And Juanita had said earlier about the parliamentarians' ruling that didn't have an effect on many of the people who were present, but that's not up for discussion. And I just, that is how I had remembered it, although the chair had disagreed with it.
Yeah.
So the chair had disagreed with it.
So on there, we should add that the chair was not in agreement.
But I would say that the consensus at that meeting was for all vacant positions. And the chair made clear her, yeah, all seats, and that the chair was not in agreement.
Okay, so will the group accept the October 22nd minutes as amended, as corrected?
Wait, please state the correction, please. What is the
So the
correction?
correction is supposed to be motion by members to request election of all seats and discussion to review May 25th election of officers. Vice Chair Juanita Kawamoto Brown offers to consider redo of all positions. Membership agrees with idea. Chair made clear she's not in agreement with that.
Yes.
Okay, so,
So only the people that were present at the October 22nd meeting can vote on these minutes.
right. So, all in favor of the minutes
Vote on the 25th.
as corrected?
No,
On the
everybody has
22nd.
to be.
We already voted on the May 25th.
No, this is on October 22nd.
October
But
22nd.
I have a question.
How are you going to approve minutes?
So, the minutes have to be approved by all the body. Is that correct, Josh?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not just the people who are at October 22nd. All the room has to vote to accept the minutes.
Wait, I have a question.
All
How is that
members
different
present.
from the 25th though?
Josh?
Where only 3 people voted in this room?
Yeah,
No,
we
it's the
need
same.
to vote.
I mean, it's the approval of the minutes. It's a, you know, it's a formal procedure that, you know,
So we could have
all the
voted.
members present should be voting to approve the minutes from previous meetings. If you weren't in previous meeting, you may not be able to speak to whether they're correct or not, but you can vote on their approval.
Yeah.
Because they can read what it says and they can agree this is something
Yeah.
that they will.
I have a question. How many people who was at that meeting are present tonight?
Which one?
The people who were in the October 22nd meeting, how many of you guys are present tonight? And so raise your hand high. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And so you would need 5 people to approve it or accept the change.
It's the whole body.
Yeah.
The whole body.
You cannot vote on it.
It can, we just
The people that were there just talk about the changes, but we all vote once the changes are made, right? But we didn't do that with the 25th, people can slide right into the 22nd. So we should actually have voted first together on the 25th.
We
and
did.
then-
We did.
No, we didn't,
Yes,
because
we
we didn't
did.
say who's in favor of accepting, only about 5 people said okay, but not everybody. So you guys gotta back up, everybody gotta be included on the first vote.
Okay,
On the everything
Okay,
debate on-
let's go ahead. Based on what
Yeah, yeah.
Mary's saying, for the May 25th, the whole body
Yes.
votes to accept the minutes. The May
Okay, all in
25th.
favor, come on.
All in
Yeah.
favor?
all in favor?
Aye. All opposed?
As amended.
And as amended. All opposed? Nay.
Wasn't there?
Nay.
Wasn't there?
Okay.
So passed, so
So
passed.
it's passed.
Now the 22nd.
So now we're gonna go to October 22nd.
Yeah, all in favor of accepting the October 22nd minutes as corrected?
Was this right?
Aye.
Opposed?
Not funny.
Okay,
Move on.
okay. I think we should break the meeting.
Would you like to break and get something to eat before we go on to the next
Yeah.
part of it? Can we take a break?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, Chair?
yes, we're in break time.
Oh, break time? Are we on break time?
No.
Yeah.
Well, the chair is...
Wait a minute. Can we get just do that? Like, you know.
Okay, wait. What's the plan? Wait.
Next door.
I just wanted to make sure they got
The sun set.
I gotta run, so I'll catch you later, babe. Good to see you.
Let's call the meeting to order. People sit down and quit talking, please. Okay.
Oh, it's me. Hey, nice, John.
Okay, let's begin this section. Juanita.
You ready?
Huh?
3 minutes to
Yes,
start?
yeah, we are.
I'm ready. I'm taking my scopes with me.
Okay, let's begin this section with the vote
On.
You would use it like a gap.
co-vice chair, treasurer, secretary, the female SEC, and I think, Juanita, do we have the papers for the election slate?
Janine put together
It's over there.
that we can pass out to everybody.
Oh, sorry, we need to make photocopies. I didn't
Okay,
know.
so I will make copies.
I'll make copies.
Is the pool at large on the? Hold on.
So on the sheet right now, there is the co-vice chair, secretary, the treasurer, the SCC female, the at-large member, and we'll be adding the SCC male on here also. Because according to Josh, the rules, we should add that in.
Pretty good, yeah. I'm not hungry.
Are we gonna do this, Chair?
It's such a big night.
We have ballots.
Oh, making copies.
Oh, yeah.
Do we have ballots?
Can I just nominate
Yeah.
people?
Making copies of the ballot.
Well,
I'm giving you another banana.
We have candidates.
if we're going to have these officers, let's have people, if you want to run for the position, who is interested in co-vice chair or who would like to nominate somebody for co-vice chair?
I'll nominate. Can I nominate?
Yeah,
I nominate Joe Lewis.
Joe Lewis.
Is his real name?
Is there,
Joe Cujillo Lewis.
Who
Joe Cujillo Lewis.
are there any other nominations
Move for the nominations to
for
be closed.
co-vice chair?
I'll second. Close the nomination.
Okay. And now for treasurer.
Does someone have to be present
What
to be?
secretary?
Does someone have to be present to,
Josh, do they have to be present? at
You have
the-
to ask them.
okay, I nominate,
Because they can, do- I mean, they can just say they don't want to do it later, so.
okay,
And then
Madam
we'll have a
Chair?
vacancy and we have to re-elect again? Okay,
If they say no.
Well, she actually
got
came
the-
and said she
Yes.
wanted to do it.
okay.
Madam
so-
Chair?
Hold on, I've got Joe
Lewis.
Cujillo Lewis.
He's already elected. We
Now
are. Close the
treasurer,
nomination.
we have
We
to
did?
vote. We have to fill out the ballot.
Okay, treasurer?
I nominate Kaylee E. Lopez, who has expressed an interest. She expressed an interest at our last
Oh,
meeting.
yeah?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Just give everybody a ballot?
Okay,
Yeah.
there's a second, so
So Kaylee is head
nominate.
of DCCA, right?
Oh, sounds good.
Yeah.
She's a director.
Are there any other,
Anyone
anyone in
else?
here wants to run for treasurer? Okay,
Close the nomination.
close.
Treasurer was Kelly.
Lily Lopez.
Lopez. Now for the SCC female,
Oh, secretary. No, secretary.
oh, secretary, sorry. I jumped over it. You continue because I have to make that call.
Okay, I'm gonna continue because Chair has to step away.
Okay.
So, okay, secretary?
So, can I make a nomination?
Yes, please.
Madam Chair? Janine Russo.
I second that.
What position was that?
Secretary.
And then secretary, and then
Anyone else care to run for secretary? Okay.
I cannot spell.
All right, moving on. SCC female.
SEC female. Madam Chair? I don't want to take the oxygen out of the room, but I got some ideas.
Okay.
I'd like to nominate Lemo Mikana.
Okay, and I second that.
When you second that,
Anyone else?
propose a nomination.
Anyone else like to run for SCC female? Okay.
See how fast that was.
And Ross Puhala is our current SCC Kane, right?
Right. Rothwell is our current SCC Kane, but we can also, Josh recommended that we go ahead and do a vote of the body for that. Because that's what the SCC would like to see us do, that there be a vote of the body for the SCC members. Yes, Lemon.
But, you know, in my mind, that's inconsistent, because if we say that we accepted the May 25th elections as good, I don't know why the parliamentarian would rule that that one wasn't good.
Okay.
So I would suggest
Well, let me-
that just
yeah.
be in place.
Okay, well, there's two separate things.
Stepping down.
What the parliamentarian spoke to was the election of officers, which is dealt with in your bylaws. The election of representatives to the State Central Committee is a separate mechanism that's driven by the party constitution and the party bylaws. So, with respect to the officers and the steering committee, his recommendation was on that. But the SCC has already said that the election that took place for this, the SCC representatives was not valid. So that decision, what's that?
Why was it not valid? Because the membership was there, I mean, it's just,
No.
it seems illogical to me that you say something is good for these people, but not for these people, unless you're saying that we did something in violation of the SCC rules.
Right.
If he said that, and so the question is, what were we in violation of?
Well, the attempt to fill the spots at convention was, the way I understand it was, the meeting was, the election for the SCC reps at the time was an attempt to seat them at convention, which it was too late to do that because elections had already taken place. So what we're asking to do now is simply fill vacancies for your spots in the SCC that exist because the election didn't take place. So the process for, there's a process for electing SCC representatives from the caucuses. In a regular cycle, under regular circumstances, you guys would nominate as many people as you want, and then the entire convention votes for one male and one female from all the caucuses that are on that ballot. But because this caucus failed to put up anyone for the election at the convention, then it didn't take place. So now what we're trying to do is fill those vacancies.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds fair.
So the election.
Okay, wait, so there's probably.
Wait a
not gonna
minute, the
be
chair
any
hasn't
opponents. It's
recognized
okay.
you.
It's okay.
And I want everyone to understand.
I won't.
Well, thank you for the explanation, now I get it.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay. I also, if I could, I also asked the same question when we were talking about the members. I asked, how come the SCC members have to be dealt with again? Because we went through the process, we went to convention, we told at convention there are 2 Hawaiian Caucus SCC members here that want to be recognized, and what the answer came back was what Josh said, that they would feel more comfortable, whether or not it's their protocol, they felt that the body should, the whole, as bigger and more of a body should acknowledge this. So I agree with you. I question what they're saying, and parliamentarian agrees with us that the SCC members should be recognized and continue to move forward the way that they were elected. That's what parliamentarians said. But we're just making it clear so that there is no dispute when we get to SCC that which vote are we going based on? The one that you had, because they might come back and say something further. So with this, it pretty much solidifies they cannot come back and say anything if we will go that route. So, yes, Michael.
Yeah, it just seems to me that there is a different procedure in the bylaws, section 10, paragraph 2B. It does require a vote, but Dante has the authority to appoint somebody if we didn't have a chance to vote. And it seems like he did that. And so the question then is, we can go ahead and have the election, but it doesn't seem to be required really by the bylaws.
Well, Dante hasn't appointed anybody.
Well, he accepted the male SEC.
That's not the same thing. And the conversation that I had with Bill Hewitt was that it was unclear that whether or not the election of SCC reps at the main meeting was back. Now, he may have said something different, but the conversation that I had with him today was that it was murky.
And it's because the bylaws are different for the SCC reps than for the executive committee.
What bylaws are you referring to?
The bylaws that you handed out here tonight. I'm looking at the caucus bylaws.
Okay, well,
I'm looking at section 10, paragraph 2.
Well, that language comes straight out of the party constitution.
Yes.
Right. But he has to make a formal motion. I appoint blah 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 and blah blah blah, and the SEC then does its thing. So that hasn't happened. And so this election precedes that.
Okay, that's all. That's consensus for all.
Okay, nobody's disputing.
Once we get these guys elected, we're not gonna go through this again, huh?
We're not.
Okay,
Somebody did
okay,
something
Madam Chair.
wrong. Right here. So, again, we'd like to move forward SCC male. I'd like to nominate Ross Puahala as the SCC male.
Second.
Second by
Third.
Esther. Third. over here.
Nominations be closed.
Okay, nomination
Close.
closed.
Oh, good, good, good.
SCC male. Okay, members at large.
Two members, Chair?
I'm large.
Yeah, two members at large.
Male, female? Is that how it works?
I think
Whatever.
it's open to what is.
What is members at large? What is it?
Well, members at large are, one, they help to maintain the quorum so that if certain groups aren't particularly available, one of the officers, the members at large, allow that potential. The other thing that, from my experience through Environmental Caucus, our members at large actually can also be members who would be active in a committee. So for example, in our group, we have a subcommittee chair for agriculture, subcommittee chair for energy, and then for the land and natural resources. And to give them the ability to really move forward to help push their issues, and especially when it comes to creating legislation, we feel that it's important that they participate effectively on the executive committee or steering committee as far as this is concerned. That's what we understand member at large to be. So nominations.
I'd like to nominate Pohai.
Okay.
I'd like to nominate Lynette Cruz.
So Pohai and Lynette. Any other names?
We need two. Male and female? That male and female?
Now we need male.
Not in this case.
Okay.
Women are better.
I'd like to nominate Davis Price.
Davis Price.
Second.
Okay, Davis Price.
Who's that?
I'd like to nominate Mike.
Uh,
Can you do
I
it?
think I'll decline. I've got too many
Too much,
responsibilities.
okay.
Ah.
I'd like to nominate Wayne Tanaka.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I've too much on my plate. So what is it?
I just asked.
Did you turn it down?
What is he
Right.
doing?
Yeah.
No, you must
He's a writer.
And I also nominate Poca. Would you be interested in being a member at large? All right.
Yeah, if you can't find a male that'll take it, then you can have.
You can have a woman.
We have a male.
We have a male.
We have a male.
Davis Price. All right.
Okay. So now, I think that's all the vacancies that are available right now. So we need to look at the ballots, and I want to reiterate again on here, we did get a co-vice chair. It was Joe Kuhio-Lewis.
Oh, okay. Joe Lewis.
Okay, so I'll go down the slate one more time for everybody, just to be clear. We're looking at co-vice chair, Joe Kuhio-Lewis. Joe Kuhio-Lewis, right here. And then we have as treasurer.
How are you spelling his Lewis?
Lewis, I believe. Is that correct, Joe?
Yes. Not like real Joe Lewis. Wear your gloves.
And then for treasurer, nominated by Esther and seconded, we have Kelly E. Lopez for treasurer. And then for secretary, we have Janine Russo. For SCC female, we have Lemomi Khan. For SCC male, we have Roth Puahala.
Male.
Member at large, Pohai Ryan. Member at large, Lynette Cruz. Also member at large, I'm sorry, the name again was?
Davis Price.
Davis Price.
Pick two off of those three, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, so we get one male, one female.
Yeah.
So before we
Yes,
ask the question, because I don't know everyone.
Right.
The at-large member, so we have 3. I know 2 of the 3, but I don't, are we just electing 2?
Just 2.
Do our bylaws just say 2?
Yes.
And does it have to be 1 male and 1 female?
No.
No. No, it does
We are
not.
saying that we can go the route of male and female, but it is left to our decision which way we want to go.
But do our bylaws limit us to only 2 at large?
I believe so, yes.
Because I don't even see at large in here, in the bylaws.
At large member.
I think that we were going by what existed in the previous.
So it's Article 3, Section 1, lists the officer. The last sentence, duly elected officers plus 2 steering committee at-large members shall constitute the steering committee.
Oh, okay, thank you. Then, may I ask if somebody could introduce Davis Price, because that's the only name I'm not familiar with.
I'd be happy to, since I nominated him. Davis is a young Native Hawaiian who was my committee clerk with the Hawaiian Affairs Committee this past session. And it's just one session or two, Davis? One.
Not one session, but I also worked in the legislature.
Davis Price?
Yes.
Yeah. And
I worked on the committee with Hawaiian Affairs with Senator, he was also the chair.
so I think he'd bring a good, fresh perspective to the caucus, but that shouldn't preempt him from saying a few things.
And he's an attorney.
That's what he's trying to say, he's an attorney.
Right? He's got to get on the stump just like all elected officials.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. And so, was also, when I graduated from the UH Cinema School in 2010. While there, I served as an alakai for the Hui of Hawaii. Led a number of initiatives that we took on there, including the Cedar Lands issue, the case versus the state, and taking on Governor Lingo and her administration and what they were trying to do with the Cedar Lands issue. Like I said, I also worked with the Committee on Hawaiian Affairs when Senator He was the chair. Was a fellow at the Kahuliao Center for Native Hawaiian Law at the Richardson Law School for 1 year after I graduated. Worked on a project dealing with title searches and history, land tenure in the state of Hawaii, the Kingdom of Hawaii. And as moving forward, I will be working on public policy issues and community outreach dealing with the legislative process, as well as further strategic planning regarding cedar lands and where community will be going forward.
Nothing wrong with that.
And I would be happy to serve.
So where are you working now?
I can't, it's still in Norway, it's being negotiated.
You're going to be at the ledge?
No.
Oh,
No.
Okay. Vote. Who is SCC female?
SCC female was
Lynette Cruz.
Lemoni.
Lemoni Khan.
And Lynette was the
Lynette
at
Cruz
large.
is at large.
At large?
Yes.
Oh, hi, Lynette. David. David.
You hear something?
Who is Pohai Ryan? Her. The one next to Brickwood.
An introduction of the other. Yeah.
Everybody knows you, but you should say something just like
You know, I just want to
Who
say
else
that
is
I want to
running for
serve because it's really important to
Lynette
me.
Cruz.
Develop Hawaiian party member leadership and encourage Hawaiians to run for office. That's what I want to be involved in.
The other one.
Because as a candidate and former senator,
You need only one, right?
assistance.
Well, we need two. There's a meal price, right? Oh, we need two of each?
Well, I'm Lynette Cruz.
No, this is at large. He goes up
The
to
chair might
at
be
large.
security.
He is. At large.
I'm a professor of anthropology at Hawaii Pacific University. I'm a social justice activist. And basically, I'm looking at what is right across the slate, not just for the Democratic Party, not just for Hawaiian politics, but throughout, basically. So I think
So she's at large,
I'm not
right?
the only one. If I had a platform, my platform would be to be Pono, basically. And if we're not going to be Pono any place, then I'm not going to be there too hard. So I think that's me.
Okay. Lynette
Oh, I wasn't
Cruz.
chairperson before of the Hawaiian Press Caucus.
And what about the female?
Some years ago.
SCC.
Lemomi Khan.
Who?
Lemomi
Yes.
Khan.
Okay.
And I really want to, if I can, I really appreciate that Lynette was just amazing to step out and really take time and energy to help me, help all of us, so that we could get the right documentation going. She really made it clear for me what was going on with the caucus prior to, and what they represented with their mission and goals. And it was just, it really meant a lot, so I
Yeah,
really
what
just
she's
want
talking about is basically I'm a record keeper. So basically,
More
what I
than
heard
that,
from her is that I had everything from, I don't know how many years ago that was, but I had all of our minutes and our agenda and all the work that was done. already
But
on my
she
computer.
cared enough to keep the track and keep things moving forward. So I really wanted to thank Lynette for all of that.
Okay, Lynette.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
what do the rest of us, what do we do?
We members.
So as members, once the committee gets together and we organize and formalize all the things, we would like our members to participate in the different issues that we're all going to move forward on. We will form committees, and through those committees, you can participate in one or all, whatever you have the energy and time to put out there and support. And then in addition to that, as a member, we support all the issues. Please come and attend the general membership meetings. Send feedback to us if you see things happening in your community. We would love to have that inclusive interaction of everybody. So,
And what about the voice at the ledge?
and the voice of the ledge will be something that you can count on your steering committee to organize. And then, of course, as we vote on issues as a body, and then we will choose those people that will go out and apply themselves at the various hearings for testimony or whatever events or actions that help us promote forward the cause we believe in or the issue we believe in.
Thank you for clarification.
And I would also like to add to what you said, Leona, is the other thing we can do as members is get involved by starting to really understand citizen advocacy. That's what's going to make us really move forward. I think the more the membership understands our role as advocates, and that we go out and we testify at these hearings and we make our points known to our legislators, that they will listen, that we can hold our legislators accountable, and especially that we hold also our party legislators accountable, that they work with us and that we have that discussion and that understanding of what our caucus wants and what the party is asking for support on.
Is this for your ballots?
Yes.
One more moment.
Yes. Yes.
In the kind of segueing your comment regarding advocacy, I also feel that the Native Hawaiian Caucus, as a relatively young Hawaiian, needs to take, whether this is regardless of who gets elected or not, I just want to put this out there because I feel that it's important. The Native Hawaiian Caucus needs to take an initiative to engage our people, our young people, get them to vote, and it's something that is discussed over and over and over, but it's extremely frustrating. With all due respect to everyone in this room, coming in here, I see exactly why our people don't get engaged. So, especially young people. And I know that there were a handful of individuals who were ready to come to this meeting who got exposed to the listserv, the emails that were going back and forth. And for whatever reason, I wasn't on the listserv, but I heard about it. And they chose not to come because they didn't want to be a part of it. So whoever is elected going forward, please keep that in mind and understand that we have to get our young people engaged. There's only 160,000 people that vote for the one, that was roughly that number, that voted for the winning governor. There's 200,000 Hawaiians in this state. We got half of our people to vote. We could take over the entire political system here. So please, keep that in mind. And we understand that it's every one of our kuleana to reach out and engage our cousins, aunties, uncles, nephews, nieces, brothers, sisters, and all their keiki, and get them to vote and get engaged, because the apathy in our community is it's very disenchanting and disheartening. So please keep that in mind.
Thank you, Joe. I'd like to add to Joe's comments also. I would like to make sure also that as a body, we go ahead and, Davis, I'm sorry. I'd also like to go forward as a body and seriously look at improving our bylaws so that we do recognize the protocol of how we handle ourselves and conduct what we need to do when we discuss, at certain points, like what Davis was saying about emails and stuff. The chair and I chose to ignore some of the email because it was really kind of negative. And if they had a discussion, they should have just sat down with the group and had that discussion with the chair and the vice chair. So all I'd like to say is, moving forward, we need to work on our bylaws and we need to have a good understanding with each other that that kind of stuff is not really going to help us go forward, so that we should always have time to talk face to face. And that the negative email stuff really wasn't necessary, and I don't think, like what Lynette said earlier, I'm here to make things happen and that we remain pono about what we do. And that's a very pono thing, to make sure that we don't go there and expose all this stuff in the wrong way. That being said, everyone turn in your votes.
Turn in.
Please do.
Chair?
Where's the chair?
Let me also share with this body that within our ranks here, within our ranks, we have some incredible institutional knowledge. And there's no need for us to go and reinvent the wheel. We have within our ranks, we have someone who just ran for Congress, who played a very, very big part in Senator Akaka's office for many years. In fact, Esther knows how to navigate federal policy. We have a former senator. I know that Dante was a former senator. I'm a current senator. I would hope that this body would understand governance and all of its intricacies. So please ask. I don't think any of us would be holding back anything from the members. So just understand, we can be very skillful, we can be disciplined, and we can really affect policy if we do it correctly and in a pono way.
Are you done?
Okay, that's what I wanted to share.
If I got everybody's ballot.
One more.
One more. The caboose. One more. Two more.
Chair, I concur with what David says. And, although I don't want to be on committees, I am concerned about the Kupuna caucus. I mean, look at this. Come on. Some of us supposed to be here should be there. So we would welcome the young ones here, so maybe perhaps some of us can move on to the Kupuna caucus and make that, give that some pulse.
I've got 20 more years before you go on.
But they're having their concerns too. They're having their challenges.
Well, I don't even know who they are.
That's what I heard.
They have a Kupuna caucus? Yeah, they do?
I don't know.
And it was in the
They
same
do?
state, it's in the
So
same
at some
state of
point,
course.
yeah.
Is that right?
They all
I never heard of them.
Veterans and.
They were inviting me.
Oh, veterans, yeah. Veterans here, no, I've done a caucus with veterans.
So how would you like to do? Would you like me just to open these and let's count them out loud, tally them?
Good.
Yes, no.
Should we do that, or
Or tally it and then announce it?
tally it
Yeah.
and
Tally and
announce it?
announce.
Good idea, good
And if
idea.
anyone has questions beyond what who gets the number, they can.
I'm gonna make Matt count, he's a big guy. Beat him up if you want.
No, once you count it, that's it.
Yes.
Esther, what you doing nowadays?
I'm helping William Isla at the Department of Land and Natural Resources.
Helping, that's an understatement. She's deputy director.
Things
Oh,
about
yeah.
Not really.
Hey, Terry, it's only on the, at large, I think, where we have a
55.
contest. Huh?
There's issues.
At
Remember, he
55.
Who's 55?
At 55. Public Land Development.
Madam Chair, while we're waiting on the results, can we go to the next item on the
Yeah, that's
agenda?
what we're looking at.
Hello?
I
Yes. I'm at a Democratic meeting.
Forum committees, is that the one?
Where are you? Oh,
Yes, that was the agenda tonight. Once we organize the body, then we would start to form committees after,
yeah.
on our issues.
It is myself.
Is the forum committee, once we have our members aboard,
All of board members.
because they're going to take a leadership role or something?
I'm in town.
You know,
I'm in
concurrent on the
town.
vote?
Right, so whoever.
So maybe we could skip that and move on to new business.
Okay, we have listed
Yeah.
18 things.
I'm not paying
Is there
attention to that.
something else that needs to be added? And Hayden,
Oh.
is this where we can add your concerns
Oh,
on
yeah, you could see it tomorrow.
the list that came out of the October 22nd meeting? No?
So do I have to make a motion to move on to new business till after the election count and then come back already? Okay. Yeah, bye-bye.
No, we can go on to new business.
Okay, let's go, come on.
What new business?
Let's go. Madam Chair, I come to this caucus to raise an issue, and it's based on a paper that I had previously submitted to the Vice Co-Chair. It's talking about the envisioning Hawaii for the future, and talking about what really moves Hawaii at the present time. Many of you may not be familiar with the issue of deep culture. And I wanted to draw this to your attention so that we can really focus on where we're at, where we're going, what structures the society that we have today that we base everything on. There's a concept called deep culture in which we act with one another, the way we respond, our assumptions that are so deep within ourselves that we don't even give second thought to it. Sometimes we don't even realize that it is a driving force in our society and within us ourselves. For example, in the formal societies of Hawaii, in our economic society, in our education systems, in the way we treat the environment, the way we do politics, the way we do national defense, we are being led by three fundamental principles. They're the principles of domination, individualism, and exclusion. You have seen some of this expressed here with Robert's Rules of Orders, how we proceed in our meetings when we go to school. It's always taking tests, non-cooperation, very individualistic, rather than working in cooperation with one another, the way we do economics. How we're going to dominate the system, we're going to capture the market. The whole economic system is based on trying to extract as much as you can from our environment, retain the resources, control the market, control the demand, and make as much profit as you can. That's how the system that we now operate in Hawaii is based on, what I call the formal systems. There is an opposite system that is in an informal society, how families get together, how husbands and wives are supposed to relate with one another, how communities get together. And instead of domination, it's always a system of olu olu, to try to work with one another in a non-combative, non-confrontational way. You can still have disagreements, but in the disagreements you try to meld around one another and you try to work in a cooperative way, although recognizing that there are some points that you disagree on. Rather than the other system, you try to look for the areas that you disagree, and then you raise hell over that, and then you lose sight of the commonality that you have. So instead of domination, it's olu olu. Instead of individualism,
it's getting late. So do you have papers that are written, or can you email this to us so that we can understand your philosophy and point of view?
And I do have the email that you sent us. So if you want to summarize.
yes, if I may summarize, and I realize the time is late. What I'm essentially saying, instead of domination, individualism, and exclusion, we have a system that I call olu olu, lokahi as opposed to individualism, and aloha rather than exclusion. So it is in essence an ola system rather than a dai system that we can bring about in our society. So as we interact with one another in terms of economics or education or environment or all of these other things, what we need to do, and it's our responsibility as a Hawaiian caucus, as a group of Hawaiians here in Hawaii, to not allow ourselves to be overrun by a DIE system and bring in a softer, more loving, more caring system, whether it's in the health area or education area or Hawaiian sovereignty area or whatever it is. And we need to start beginning to shift paradigms, to start thinking in this way and finding ways of operating in Hawaii under a completely different system. Otherwise, we may end up being very good in the DIE system. We may be very successful in it. I'm an attorney, others are attorneys, we can be bankers, we can be all of these things. But watch out, because we may end up being the rat, having won the rat race and lost our souls as we do that. And that is what is happening in Hawaii today, unless we start taking a look at and giving some leadership in the general community. So that's the first point, that we need to at least focus on that and become aware and start spreading this in whatever areas we go into, whether it's through legislation or through whatever it is. The second point I wanted to raise is the point that we seem to have forgotten what commitments were made by the state of Hawaii and including the Office of Hawaiian Affairs about 8 years ago, and it was called the Native Hawaiian Vote. Because of the question of Hawaiian sovereignty, who's the king, who's the queen, what is the process, everybody claiming, going to the United Nations claiming that I am the regent pro tem, I am the governor of, or the leader of the Hawaiian nation. And over a period of time, people finally said, hey, we're sick and tired of all these people making claims that they represent us. We want to elect our own Native Hawaiians to sit together, to talk it out, to fight it out, and then present to the Hawaiian people what the options are and let the Hawaiian people vote on it. Then the legislature and the Office of Hawaiian Affairs refused to continue to fund that project, where there was 89 of us elected by the Hawaiian people. We spent a lot of time, we spent over $1 million to put that together, the Native Hawaiian Convention, and we have members here who are members of the Native Hawaiian Convention, finally came out with two potential offers. One, an integrationist approach, very similar to the Akaka bill. The other one, an independence approach. And as we were just about ready to put it out, we needed one or two more conventions to call the people from the different islands, from America and from other places, to sit in convention and finish that job. The line was cut. Why? Was it because you had such a strong independence position that was being laid out, that people in the establishment didn't want to continue funding it? We made a promise to the Native Hawaiians. When we went out to every community asking them, how do you want to begin that process? They said, let's take a vote to see if we want to elect delegates. They voted, they said, yes, we want to elect delegates. Then we went to the next step, we elected the delegates. and then what, kaput. And nobody seems to be honest enough to say, let's continue with that process. Instead, who or what are we supporting in the last legislative session? The Native Hawaiian Role Commission, which is essentially an integrationist approach. What happened to the Native Hawaiian vote? We threw it out the window and nobody seems to want to follow it. Nobody seems to have that historical memory of our commitment to our Native Hawaiian people. And I'm saying that the Native Hawaiian Caucus should be cognizant of that and not let that drop. So that's the new business that I wanted to raise.
Thank you, Poka. And to let you know, it is one of the issues that we do have listed, not in specific comparison to what you're saying, but we are looking at Act 195. So we are talking about the Native Hawaiian role and what's happening. And there have been some resolutions that have passed that have issue with that. But now we can add to that, but it is one of the points that we want to address in this caucus. So I hope that you can look at that and see, give us your value, your points of view when we move forward with that committee and that issue.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Hugh. Okay, is there any further new business? Is the count done? Okay.
Wait, in the meantime, are you
Yeah.
going back to the other business?
Yes.
Which was on the issues, and I guess you were asking.
Yes.
Okay. So, and having just heard Poka, I would like to recommend we add Native Hawaiian governance on the list.
We have it there.
I didn't quite see it.
Madam Chair, you know, I'm just a little concerned about going into a dialogue on this at this late hour. Perhaps we could defer it to another time so that we could all be re-engaged. Because I was here at that time, but I already forgot, and you know how it is. I think we all need to be take a look at it for those members who weren't here, and then just be recharged the next time.
And we can also add through email and information that we're sharing here.
So all we're doing right now, though, we're not discussing each of these issues.
Just listening.
The question was, on the list that was circulated to us, did we want anything else added
Yes, and
to it?
I think that others, even myself, would probably want to look and make recommendations, but I just think that it'd be futile to do that right now, because it would not be exhaustive. We would want a more time and a frank discussion on it. So you can move forward and add one more or two more, but it's not going to be exhaustive. That's all I'm saying. That shouldn't be the universe.
Right. So this is just a start.
Yes.
And you can always add to it.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we came to this meeting this evening with this on the agenda. And I'm just saying that since the chair has opened it up for us to add, or is inviting us to add, it doesn't mean that the list is a be-all, end-all, because I think the next is going to be to, I'm guessing, prioritize the list and decide, you know, approaches and who would move it.
Leimomi, it's somewhat under point 13. You know, we could expand that.
Yeah, I would like to see Native Hawaiian self-governance on there.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm all in favor
Because
of that.
it's really the next follow-on step to the role.
Why you not really in favor of that?
And I would like to add to that this list was basically written out with the group that was here on the 22nd, but it was also just summarized. So detailing it as she's stating, what I'm hearing is that we'd like to give better clarity to address specifically this.
Okay, which we'll take up next time.
Okay, so any more new business? Okay, so we can go on and I can let you know what the vote results are. So again, our congratulations to our co-vice chair, Joe Lewis. Thank you. And then we have Secretary Janine Russo. Thank you. Kelly E. Lopez will be our treasurer, hopefully. And then the SCC female is Leimomi Khan. And SCC male will be Roth Puahala. And then on the members at large, I'll start with the number of votes. So Davis Price was number 1, so he got his seat. He had 17 votes. Number 2, female, thank you. Number 2 was Lynette Cruz. She had 14 votes. And then hawaiian had 11 votes. It was very close. So our 2 members at large will be Davis Price and Lynette Cruz. And if you'd like to look at the votes, we have that available.
Okay, is there any other business that we need to bring up?
No, we just need to determine the next meeting.
Date. Monday. Who has a calendar?
So I'd like to move for a December meeting if that's possible. Because we really need to go ahead and get information back to the SCC regarding our members and the vote that was taken here before the January SCC meeting. So, no.
Okay, December.
December, it could be on the 10th?
The 10th?
December 10th? Yes.
I just wanted to ask, and I'm not sure the structure of caucuses, but perhaps an executive meeting prior to the general membership meeting so that we can prepare.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay, so
That's a good idea.
then
That's a good idea, Joe.
if we do the 10th as the executive meeting, and then the 17th.
Sorry. How many total votes do we have?
What I had listed here is some people voted and some people did not. So what I had was the most votes placed on Davis at 17. And then Lynette was 14. And then Ohio was 11. So the papers are here. And you can double check with that.
Well, what was the votes on the ones that weren't opposed?
11.
No, the ones that weren't opposed?
11.
Like Leilani and?
Yeah.
11.
All 11.
Oh, wow.
I'm sorry, because there was no other names voted, there were some blank votes, and there were some that had the one name nominated. Nobody put in any other name, so we didn't count, but we could do that if you'd like to know. We didn't bother because of the time counting when there was no opposition. So that was just a choice we made so we could focus on the contested race. We don't have the total on, but we could do that. It's still here.
Okay.
We could
But
count
they're
the ballots if you like.
uncontested, so do
And
we
some
want to
people
go
did
through the
not fill in
process?
every single, they left some blank.
Yeah, not everybody voted.
Because it was uncontested.
Because it was
December 3rd.
So December 3rd you want to do?
Yeah, dude, we're getting too
But I mean,
close.
it's okay, we could, we can.
Don't get
we can
anything
have
on a
this
Monday
one.
because we have our own meeting on a Monday.
Well,
I guess you can count how many ballots they are altogether. How many ballots?
Good, if that's
You don't need
the
the
will.
vote, but how many pieces of
Yeah.
paper?
Okay, we're going to count
here,
all the votes
the
all
dates,
together.
the 3rd.
Okay, we're going to readjust the schedule again. So the next meeting for the steering committee members.
Executive committee.
No, it's still steering committee.
Steering? Oh, yeah.
We're steering committee till we do our bylaws to change our
the name.
committee to executive
Okay.
committee. So December 3rd is steering committee meeting, please. And it'll be from 6 to 7:30.
Madam Vice Chair,
Yes.
this is information, I will be off island on December 3rd.
Sound very well.
So if I'm part of that, I can't make that meeting.
Can you do teleconference?
I can try.
You can do teleconference in here, that's fine. So if you can do by phone, you can do that. And plus, we're gonna try and figure out how to get Skype set up. Because we do that with other, and I don't know if your computer has that capability. December
Not mine.
3rd.
My computer is
Okay,
stupid.
and then the general meeting for the 10th.
And then we'll have the general membership meeting again, December 10th, to vote on changes that we're gonna be discussing as the steering committee.
Sorry, what time?
6 to 7:30. And December 10th is, and we'll get notice out, because now we have a secretary who can really help us with all that stuff. Thank you, everyone. Are we adjourning the meeting?
Yes, we're adjourning.
I'd like to adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.